Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Industry Outsider. I'm your host Elizabeth, and today we'll be looking at Barstool Sports' David Portnoy's new brick watch company and their two offerings. I'll also be doing a hands-on introduction/review of the Aerotec Ace X GMT Diver. And finally, at the end of the video, I will be giving away a watch. With all that said, let's jump into the video. One of the big pieces of news in the watch industry this last month was the creation of Brick Watch Company by Barstool Sports mogul Dave Portnoy. Now, I don't know much about Portnoy. I'm not a sports girl, I don't eat pizza, and I don't gravitate towards bro culture. I have nothing against the guy, just honestly, I'm not that familiar with him one way or the other. He's just one of those names that I occasionally hear that I don't really know who the person is, but I know they're kind of famous. Now, what I do know a little bit about is watches. So I decided to check out what exactly is the Brick Watch Company offering. And let me tell you, for the price, not much. Now, first of all, this is not a hands-on review. If it were, maybe my opinion would be slightly different. But as things stand right now, this is the most offensive thing to come out of the watch industry since the moon swatch. And most of you know how I felt about that. The problem here, in a nutshell, is the value. Dave Portnoy has a built-in customer base because of Barstool Sports. And I don't have a problem with that per se, but I object to the idea that there's anything about these watches that is high quality and somehow affordable. In his story about how the Brick Watch Company came to be, he talks about nearly purchasing a Rolex. And I guess if we lived in a world where we only had cheap fashion watches and Rolex, then this offering might have some relative value against that stark backdrop. But we don't. We live in a world with brands like Oris, Tudor, Nomos, Doxa, Christopher Ward, Seiko. I could go on and on. Compared to these brands, the Brick Watch Company has little to offer. They have two watches for sale. One is a dress/sports watch called the Classic 22, and they also have a Chrono Diver 22. Both retail for $2,399. Let that sink in for a minute. The Classic is an unimpressive, unattractive, sporty dress model, and it has one of the ugliest date windows I've ever seen. And while yes, it does have 100 meters of water resistance and an anti-reflective sapphire crystal, there is nothing about this model that justifies that price point. It's powered by a Sellita SW200. What grade of movement?
Don't know.
Seriously, you could buy about 50 different mechanical Seikos for much less that are better looking and should be just as reliable, if not more so. Moving on to the Chrono Diver 22. First of all, it's not a diver. 100 meters of water resistance is not a diver. Second, it's a quartz. Yes, it's a Swiss Ronda Star Trek 5040.D, but I still don't understand how a quartz chronograph is a $2,400 watch. It's a little bit better looking than the Classic, but that's not saying much. It's still an uninspired design that does little to nothing for me. Both watches have the logo Always Earned on the dial, which I find to be somewhat ironic considering that selling these watches at this price point is borderline theft. These watches have no history. No iconic design. Honestly, they look like something that was designed by someone working for Alibaba. They have no qualities that infuses them with a value anywhere near the price point they're asking. This is marketing. This is basically Movement 2.0. I'm surprised he didn't say he was cutting out the middleman and disrupting the market. Honestly, I would rather save myself nearly $1,000 and buy a Shinola Runwell Automatic. It's a much cooler watch. So second, we have a Kickstarter microbrand model called the Aerotec Ace X GMT Diver. And I almost said no to reviewing it because it's not in my wheelhouse fit-wise. It's a 41mm case with a 48 lug-to-lug length, 20mm lug width, and it's a whopping 16.5mm thick. So yeah, it's a man's watch. It's not a unisex watch. Now, I want to be upfront. They did offer me the watch in order to review it, but like I said, I knew it would be too big for my wrist. And it is. But I said yes anyway because I really like the dial and the coloring in general. I'm a huge fan of the color of the bezel. It's almost like a candy apple red. It's also aluminum, and I don't think there are any ceramics that look quite like aluminum, though they don't scratch, and this eventually will. But that dial is very different, and in a good way. It has this mottled sort of rippled texture that changes color from a deep grape almost to a bright red, and it looks fantastic in the sunlight. There's just a lot of things about this watch that I really like. It has a double-domed sapphire crystal, also what looks like a Jubilee style bracelet with solid end links, a quick release, very good articulation, and amazingly, 6 micro adjusts. The finishing on the bracelet is fine, but I will admit that it is a little sharp in some spots, but not enough to make you not want to wear the bracelet. It has 2 crowns, one at 2 o'clock and the other at 4. The 2 o'clock crown controls an inner rotating 24-hour bezel, so it's a 3 time zone GMT. And I like this inner bezel more than I like the one on my Alpinist, because when I tighten the crown, I can't knock it off center. It's a diver with 200 meters of water resistance, and as you can see here, it has an embossed diver-looking guy and his, I guess, they're goggles, which are glass and you can look into the movement a little bit. It's not the same as an exhibition case back. You can't really see that much, but it's kind of cool and I haven't seen anything like it before. Speaking of the movement, it's a Seiko NH34 GMT, which should be a decent workhorse movement. Anyway, I've been averaging about 15 to 18 seconds fast per day, so it's well within spec. The double dome sapphire crystal has an anti-reflective coating on the inside, but it doesn't seem to be particularly effective because this thing does catch some light in the outdoors, and legibility isn't really its strong suit. However, it's not that bad either, and personally, I've been able to see what time it is pretty quickly in different conditions. Like I mentioned earlier, the bracelet does have a quick release, and the watch came with this reddish brown leather strap, and that's how I've been wearing the watch. Like I said, it's a Kickstarter offering starting January 10th. Currently, the price for the watch is $329, which is supposed to be 60% off the future retail price of about $550. It's got some decent hardware for the price, and I really like the dial. So if you want to check it out, the link to their website will be in the description box down below, which you will notice I didn't do for the Brick Watch Company. I hit a milestone very recently and I cracked 10,000 subs in less than a year on YouTube because I actually hit this milestone a couple weeks ago. And as a way to say thank you to my audience, I'm giving away the Aerotec. Because honestly, it's too big for me and it seems really silly for me to keep, but it's a pretty cool watch. So here's what you have to do to win the watch. All you have to do is leave a comment down below on this video specifically. I will be using a random comment generator and I will be announcing the winner on January 1st in a separate video. Now, you don't have to be subscribed to me in order to win. The idea here is not for me to gain more subscribers. The goal here is for me to give back to the community that has been supporting me throughout this entire year. I'll be sure to go into detail about how you can claim your prize in that video I'll be posting on January 1st. So remember, if you want to win the Aerotec, just leave a comment down below. And again, thank you everyone for all of your support. Hitting 10K in a year is such an unbelievable milestone, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Well, that's about everything I have for you guys. I'll see you in my next video.